Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, distinguished guests and your excellencies. Thank you for joining this event today. My name is Ariane Steinsmeier. I'm the Vice President for Global Development at RARE. We are an international organization who works on social change in terms of natural resource management, and one of our major focus is also coastal communities and the oceans. So what we heard yesterday at the Ocean Action Day is already sort of new solutions, the call for action, and really to link climate change action with ocean action. So I'm really pleased that we have another event here and really distinguished guests who can tell a little bit how do we connect that action at all levels, from policy to finance, as we talked yesterday, as well as now here also the negotiations, to really see how oceans can be a critical part of the climate change solutions. Obviously, following from Madrid, here is really a call to action to now also talk about how do we implement this. In the recent IPCC report really gave us a chance to understand how we can combat climate change and support vulnerable communities more than ever. So to meet the challenge, which is right in front of us, obviously we work together and we need to even increase that. And the partnership approach we also heard yesterday was really encouraging. But that's also why we gathered here today, and we are really pleased to host this event here together with the International Partnership for Blue Carbon and the Fiji government on behalf of the Friends of the Oceans and Climate. And, you know, in terms of collaboration really across these different organizations and governments, it's really the call for action we want to reiterate here at this event. So today we really want to discuss the pathway between mobilization, ocean, climate change action across all levels also of governments, from local to global, but really also how to connect mitigation and adaptation action. And we're really proud to have a set of speakers here who can also bring their different perspectives to the table and really see also as partnerships we can complement each other and collaborate together. That is also really a call to action to see how do we move from the COP to next year. Again, we have seen that also yesterday there, I think it was His Excellency Peter Thompson saying, like, we're really handing the baton from meeting to meeting also next year to really call for action and connect all those different levels of ambition around climate change, biodiversity, SDG 14. And so really we want to start with reflecting what we need to do at COP to then sort of move on into the next year as well. And so before we enter into the discussion with our distinguished guests, we wanted to make sure that we also bring the coastal communities to the table. I think we have seen there is a lot of need for understanding how does the call for action really meet the ground, what does coastal communities need, and what is the situation they're facing currently. So we are really happy to have a video message from Mayor Ati Eliza, and coming from a community in the Philippines who has provided us with the address per video. And as in her role as really leading her community through difficult changes now occurring by climate change, it's really also a call for action here, and she gives some positive hope and perspective also how it can move forward. And again, partnership is one of the key opportunities here. And we recently launched a global network of local mayors called Coastal 500, which really brings together the power of the local mayors in pledging their support in terms of climate change, biodiversity, and SDGs, and really moving forward collectively. So she will share a little bit also not only what she expects from the COP as an outcome, but also how she sees sort of local mayors connecting globally to tackle the change we need.
The Philippines is an archipelagic country. We are surrounded by seas. We need to address the issue of climate change, and we have to do it now. I look forward to the day when all the mayors of coastal towns will be joining so that we will be one in our commitment to protect our seas. Good day, everyone. Before anything else, please allow me to extend my gratitude for having been given this opportunity to speak before this very distinguished audience. I am Attorney Maria Lisa Resurrection, the Municipal Mayor of Pilar, Surigao del Norte. Pilar is situated in the island of Siargao, and it faces directly the Pacific Ocean. My people, Pilarnons, rely primarily on agriculture as our means of livelihood. Most of my people are fisher folk and farmers. Climate change, to many of us here, is novel. We need to understand more about it. We need to understand more about its effects, and we need to understand more how to combat it. As the conference, the COP26 is ongoing in Scotland, we are very grateful that our world leaders are now looking at how to solve the problems brought about by climate change. There have been talks of halting the utilization of coal, methane, and all other practices which aggravates the effects of climate change around the world. But as far as I'm concerned, being a local chief executive, we at our own level should now also start to really address it and not wait for others to do it for us. Pilar is, once again, a poor municipality. So we need to be able to devise means. We need to look at the options that will enable us to combat climate change. I remember when I first became mayor in 2016, I ordered a halt to the quarrying of our sands in our coastal areas. One of the primary measures that we passed during my first term was an ordinance banning the use of non-reusable plastic in the municipality. Little did I know then that as early as 2016, we were already doing our part in combating climate change. Once again, I would like to say that being a poor municipality, we do not have all the resources at our disposal to utilize our finances to address the climate change problem. But nature has given us solutions that we can utilize if we only know how. Thus, we should now be looking at nature-based solutions, such as the protection of our forests, so that our slopes will be protected and landslides will be prevented. If we look at the concept of nature-based solutions, this is something very new to us. Thus, that's one of the challenges that we're now facing, how to introduce this, how to make this acceptable to our people, because it is necessary that in planning for this, in adapting this, they should be involved, they should be educated, they should own it, because that's the only way that the adoption of NSB will be successful. No planning, no matter how perfect it is, once it does not involve the people who are going to be affected by it, will be successful. It's not an easy job, but as local executives, we have we need to start doing our part. I was asked what were the challenges, what is the most difficult aspect in the implementation in achieving our advocacies. Let's say in COVID-19, I remember when we started, when I strictly implemented the protocols, I literally locked down the municipality. there was a very adverse reaction. I also remember when the quarrying of sand was banned, there were adverse reactions. But again, these are the challenges that we need to overcome. What is very important here is the political will of the political leadership, not only in our local government units, but also in the national, regional levels, and in the entire world. We have heard our leaders make commitments. I pray and hope that these commitments will be transformed into action so that we will eventually be able to conquer the adverse effects that climate change has brought to us. And more than anything else, aside from the political will, we need to really have the heart to really implement our advocacies. As leaders of our communities, we have been we are the stewards of whatever nature has given us. I have made a commitment that during my watch, I will do my best to ensure that our environment, our marine resources are protected. Of course, this has to be balanced with the needs of the economy. But at the end of the day, I've always told myself, between more than anything else, what would matter most to me is the legacy that will be left behind for the future generations of Pilarnos, and that is protecting our environment. Thus, as leaders, I say that despite the challenges, despite the limited resources, we should persevere. With our concerted efforts, we will prevail and save Mother Earth. Salamat karajaw gadud sa inyong tanan.
At nakapot nato na mga kalampusan, timaan sa kadaog at tanan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for sharing the call for action, but really also for showing the commitment a lot of local leaders are now currently having and really stepping up and say, like, I really want to help my community in that difficult situation moving forward and provide hope, but also really therefore step up and give an address to this COP here to, as leaders, but on a global level, really step up. It also shows sort of the human face of the challenges we're discussing here, which I think is often missing when we are stuck in this, COP sphere, while we obviously also enjoy seeing each other again after we have not been able to do so in person and to really collaborate in partnership. And I think that's really also what's needed and why we're glad that we actually are able to hear both from you here in person, but also virtually. So just for everyone to know, we will also connect virtually through this event as well. So partnership is really key here, and we are delighted to also have the International Partnership for Blue Carbon here present and share some remarks. And I'm happy to also share that RARE is thrilled to become a member of the partnership, and we're really looking forward to collaborate with you and all the partners also continuously here in the room. So with further ado, I would like to hand over the mic to Kirsten, who will share a little bit about the partnership and the contribution to it. She has been working at the Intergovernmental Oceanic Commission for UNESCO for a long time, and we will hear from here, as well as her colleague, Dr. Melanie, from the Australian government, and share some perspective here, both here in person, and we will have a video there as well. So I hand it over to you, Kirsten.
Thank you very much, and it's really an honor to be here with you and with so many panelists. It's a pleasure to talk to you and to present really this working together to deliver. It's one of those outcomes as well, which was put out by the UK presidency, and this is what the partnership is really aiming for. And I'm here presenting one part of the coordinator team. So as the partnership is a group of a lot of members, also the coordinator team is led by Australia and supported by IOC. And we will my colleague from Australia couldn't be here, and she will say a few words to really introduce the International Partnership for Blue Carbon and what we aim for and what we hope to deliver in the future.
Good morning, and thank you, Kirsten, for representing the IPBC coordinator team on ground in Glasgow. I'm sorry I can't be with you for this event, but I'm thankful for the virtual opportunity to talk with you via video. Working together to deliver. This is one of the 4 goals of COP26. And with this goal, there's clear recognition that partnerships, collaborations, and sharing are critical to accelerating action to tackle the climate crisis. The International Partnership for Blue Carbon has worked with this mission since its launch by Australia in 2015. Partners work towards a joint vision to conserve, restore, and sustainably manage global blue carbon ecosystems, contributing to climate change mitigation, adaptation, biodiversity, ocean economies, and livelihoods of coastal communities. This vision recognises that partners are focused on achieving various outcomes from blue carbon protection. Some are striving to safeguard coastal communities from storm risks or ensure food security. Others have a mandate to reduce global greenhouse gases. Yet the work we do and what we have to do to get there is the same, spanning from local to national to international. Partners of the International Partnership for Blue Carbon are from government agencies, research organisations, intergovernmental organisations, and non-government organisations. And this mix of partners is quite unique. The IPBC is not a research consortium, nor an advocacy body or government leaders pledge. The IPBC is an open forum for partners from all types of organisations to connect, share, and collaborate. Partners are helping each other in spheres of policy development and practical implementation by sharing resources, identifying gaps and barriers, and coming up with solutions from various angles of expertise. For example, the IPBC is one of the only forums that enables connections between staff from government agencies with each other and directly with research groups and blue carbon practitioners in NGOs and intergovernmental organisations. The partnership has grown to 50 partners, with the newest member being Scotland. And it is great to see several partners here today from PNG, Portugal, Costa Rica, the US, and the UK. And of course, Fiji is a valued partner, and we are so pleased to be co-hosting this event with you. In addition, I'm delighted to receive the news that RARE will be joining the partnership. And what better place to extend our welcome to you. Partners work and have initiatives spanning from international to local, to national to local. And this is also reflected in the 3 goals of the partnerships, which are focused on increased international commitments, improved national policies, and accelerated on-the-ground implementation. In relation to Goal 3, I'd like to take this opportunity to present the new Blue Carbon Accelerator Fund, launched by Australia just earlier today. The fund will be delivered in partnership with IUCN, and it will support the development of blue carbon restoration and conservation projects. The fund will include readiness support that will help project developers with activities to prepare projects for implementation and future private sector finance, thereby growing the portfolio of investment-ready projects. Secondly, the fund will also support implementation activities of restoration or conservation projects that will provide a demonstration of measurable benefits to climate, biodiversity, and livelihoods. To do that, Australia will fund the Global Ocean Accounts Partnership to implement ocean accounting across these projects. This accounting work will be based on UN Environmental Economic Accounting Standards and will enable the full value of ecosystem services to be recognised. This opens the doors to new funding opportunities for carbon and non-carbon outcomes. The Blue Carbon Accelerator Fund will make an important contribution to the partnership by helping to build the path for additional finance streams for blue carbon at local, national and international level. On this note, I will end by saying that coastal blue carbon ecosystems really do sit in the nexus of climate, biodiversity, oceans and livelihoods. The protection of these critical coastal ecosystems is a true nature-based solution to climate change. And I'm enthused to say there's much scope for accelerated action at all scales. I wish you all the best today with the ongoing pieces of this event and look forward to hearing the results. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. So now it's my honor, now it's my honor to introduce the Ambassador Prasad. Again, we're really delighted to jointly host this event with the government of Fiji. The ambassador is a permanent representative to the United Nations in New York and is really, in terms of ocean, a leading figure in terms of also chair of the Pacific Island Forum, as well as also a member of the high-level panel on oceans. He will give some high-level remarks to open our round to really hear what is the importance of strengthening ocean actions around the UNFCCC and how really sort of global ambition can be achieved in here at the COP. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Good morning and good evening to listeners digitally, especially from the Blue Pacific, and good day to others who may be in other time zones. What a wonderful morning this is, and thank you all for coming on this slightly cold and rainy morning, a thing that we are not very familiar with from my part of the world. But it's poignant, quite significant that we are having this discussion this morning about climate action at all, oceans climate action at all levels, local levels, national level, regional level and global levels, at the end of a very rich day on oceans and at the start of a day of nature. And this is putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and I really congratulate you on thinking about how sometimes these two disparate parts are being brought together through this initiative. So thank you very much. Fundamentally, this COP is about 1.5. If you do not have 1.5, there isn't much of an ocean to save in the first place. But second part is that if we did not have coherent, systematic, and deep and ambitious integrated sets of actions at local, national, regional, and global levels, we will not secure the 1.5. So this is the sort of dance of death or life, that both parts have to work together. And so let me offer some remarks in trying to piece the puzzle together. First, before countries and regions in Pacific, we have our regional settings such as the Pacific Island Forum and the institutions related to the regional governance of oceans and etc. That all tools that we know about and tools that we think offer a lot of potential should be on the table now, because 1.5 is a significant target, and we are getting close. We are not there, but every part of the toolkit needs to be brought onto the table. In the ocean space, this is quite significant, because the contribution of oceans on securing 1.5 is so substantial. Now we know that. We know that nearly 20% of the contributions will come from oceans and oceans-related activities, coastal and oceans-related activities. The second is that we are, the glass is half full or half empty, whichever way you want to see that. At this COP, we have now seen something like 80 blue component of NDCs that have been delivered. That is quite significant. Of course, a few years back, we may have had 3 or 4, and they have grown exponentially and we now have a stock of blue component of NDCs. That gives us a very good starting base. And in thinking about how we can accelerate local, national, regional, and global actions, these blue NDCs give us a good stock of what countries are doing at different levels and whether we are doing enough in sharing information and lessons, etc. In Fiji's case, we have, rather than waiting for global frameworks to fall in place, we want that to happen. We want that to happen much faster. We are undertaking our own set of cohesive actions. We now have a national oceans policy. A national oceans policy integrates all the parts of the government system. You know, in all countries who are going through this, you know that the government functions and responsibilities with respect to oceans are stressed across so many functional parts of government: fisheries, oceans management, security, and economics, and so many other parts, including science and research parts of government. At local, traditional, and indigenous community management system, that you bring all of these pieces together and within a framework of accountability. But an oceans policy will only carry you so far. In the strive towards securing 1.5, achieving that as fast as we can, we need to have a sense of irreversibility, and that's a very important part of the task before us, that we need to be secure 1.5, and we need to be confident that we will not slip in achieving 1.5 and maintaining that. To ensure that progress in oceans management, oceans governance, and is not reversed, Fiji has just passed its Climate Act, and we are very happy to share our experience on the Climate Act, which locks in oceans-based mitigation solutions, including our commitment to zero carbon shipping, protecting and restoring coastal blue carbon ecosystems, as well as all emissions in the seascape. Fiji has committed itself to 100% managed area across whole of its EEZ, and within that a 30% commitment to a highly managed marine protected area. And we are calling on as many countries as possible to commit themselves to a zero carbon shipping outcome, because that's a low-hanging fruit. Technology has really improved, and together we should be able to make considerable and exponential stride in that. But securing the oceans and the cohesive set of oceans actions at local, community, and national level is also, and the pace at which you make progress is also related to finance. And you have heard Fiji and many other countries say that finance is a crucial part of all of these equations. The way in which Fiji is proceeding, much of its oceans-based mitigation activities will be financed through one part of the toolkit that I had spoken about, and that is an environmental and climate and environmental tax, essentially a tax on carbon. Through an environment and carbon tax, we are securing the resources, and these resources are then mobilized for mangrove protection and sea protecting coastal communities, relocating coastal communities, restoring reefs, protecting reefs, and everything else in the oceans policy that has been identified. Going beyond that, we wished that there was security, that 100 billion were secured, and we really expect we're at the halfway point that COP26 will deliver on a commitment of 100 billion per year in predictable ways, in clear ways, without a fudge of the 100 billion being spread and respread and distributed somewhat differently over a 5-year period. That's an article of faith, it's an article of trust, and we are at the halfway point, and we should be able to walk away. Quite confident that that funding is secure. Fiji is going further domestically and exploring and innovating blue finance. We will be, the Finance Minister and Attorney General, Honorable Ayaz Qayyum, will be talking mid-next week about issuance of first blue bond for Fiji, and we hope you will be able to participate in that, where we are talking about how we bring in private sector into and working with private sector and philanthropic organizations to increase the scale of private resources that is available for oceans action. But an important point for all Pacific small states is not that private sector finance is not available. It is the cost at which private sector finance is available to our countries. And presently, the rates at which blue finance is available to our countries for oceans actions, for mitigation actions, for blue carbon conservation and protection and extension is punishing. It is cruel. And if we were able to innovate and bring down the cost of finance, then the pace at which we are able to take our oceans action will be transformed, and we'll really have game-changing outcomes. So thank you again very much for inviting me to share some comments. I hope that as we walk away from this COP, that we have locked away very firmly the oceans and climate pathway, that what oceans and climate pathway looks like then is a set of integrated set of and coherent set of actions that countries can look at, explore domestically, that sets of countries who share waters can look at and explore at the regional levels where some of these things make sense, and based on that be able to accelerate action in the oceans sphere. And thank you again very much, and good morning.
Thank you, Ambassador. Yeah, it's great to hear really action on the ground, as well as sort of touch, you know, the finance aspect, and also really remind us why a dialogue and partnership is important. And so, without further ado, I would like to invite other Friends of the Ocean and Climate Change group to really share their perspective. We have representatives for the US, Sweden, and Chile here as well. So first, I would like to introduce Sue Binias. She's the US Deputy Special Envoy for Climate Change, and would share a brief introduction to that subject as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. And I apologize in advance that I'm going to have to leave after I make a few remarks. Well, it's great to be among the Friends of the Ocean and Climate. These three countries in particular, Fiji, Chile, and Sweden, have been at the forefront over the last several years of trying to break down the walls between ocean issues and climate issues. And I should also add that this was the very first initiative that the United States joined after the Biden administration came into office, maybe on day 2 of the administration, you know, reflecting the high priority that the administration places on the nexus between the ocean and climate. So I'd like to outline maybe 3 ways in which we think that international progress on ocean climate issues should look, including with respect to this COP in particular. So let me start with the first one. I think, you know, I'm repeating a bit of what Fiji said, but I think the highest priority for the ocean, in our view, is keeping the 1.5-degree temperature limit within reach. It's the most important thing you can actually do for ocean protection. And all year, our, I would say, top climate priority has been to leave Glasgow in a better position than we came into it with respect to 1.5, and to be significantly more on track to keeping that temperature limit within reach. And for that reason, our president has held 2 leader-level events trying to raise global ambition, particularly among the major economies, which account for about 80% of global emissions. And Secretary Kerry, our special presidential envoy, has been incredibly busy, literally 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day, trying to raise not only US ambition, but the ambition of other countries around the world. In terms of this COP, there's a second objective with respect to raising ambition. We know that even if we get quite far towards keeping 1.5 within reach, you know, Glasgow should not be the end of the story. in terms of raising global climate ambitions. So we are very focused on the cover decision, or what some people are calling the ambition decision that comes out of this COP, and making sure that it reflects a collective commitment to keep 1.5 within reach and to treat this decade as a critical one or a decisive one in terms of parties keeping their NDCs under review, enhancing them as needed, putting in long-term strategies if they haven't already done so, et cetera, et cetera. So our second objective is more ocean-specific, not just generic climate-based, and that's to basically have countries take actions or make announcements that are related to ocean-based climate solutions in particular, and climate resilience, all in service of keeping 1.5 within reach. So let me mention a couple things that the United States has been doing in this regard. In our submissions under the Paris Agreement, which include the NDC we submitted in April, and the long-term strategy, our net zero strategy, which we submitted a few days ago, we make many references in there to the role of ocean-based solutions, including offshore renewables, clean shipping, blue carbon, et cetera, et cetera. We're also participating in a number of ocean-related ambition coalitions. Just this week at Norway and Palau's invitation, we joined the Ocean Panel, which I think used to be called the High-Level Panel for Sustainable Economy, Sustainable Ocean Economy. And we made, as part of joining that panel, we made what we consider to be a major commitment, which is to create a national sustainable ocean plan, so to sustainably manage our ocean areas under US jurisdiction. On Wednesday, we announced with Palau that we're going to be partnering to host I believe it's the 7th Our Ocean Conference in Palau. And that's going to be coming up in mid-February, and that has many kind of pillars attached to it, but at least several of them relate to the ocean climate nexus. And the third thing that we are doing is we've made several sector-specific commitments and announcements. On Monday, Secretary Kerry launched with other countries a zero-emission shipping declaration. What that basically involved partnering with other countries within the International Maritime Organization to support zero-emission shipping, not just net zero, but zero-emission shipping by 2050, with intermediate targets in 2030 and 2040. On Thursday, our Secretary of the Interior announced a global challenge to accelerate offshore wind development and promote economic growth in the clean energy sector. And we're looking forward to further announcements coming out of the United States. Our NOAA administrator joined us today, and you'll be hearing from him in the days to come. So last point is we want to reflect, coming out of this COP, not only keeping 1.5 alive, but we want specific ocean references in the decisions that come out of Glasgow. And that's something that the Friends of the Ocean and Climate have been working on, in particular, pretty much since Madrid, or even on the road to Madrid. The basic point is to create better integration within this UNFCCC forum. And we think that decision should do a number of things. First of all, it should sort of get our own house in order. And one way to do that is to request the various bodies in this process and processes to kind of consider how they are integrating ocean climate issues into their work. So that's very much kind of internal. The other thing that's important is to make sure that the dialogue that was held last fall was not a one-time event, but that we continue to do that kind of thing. Whether we call it a dialogue or a forum, and whether we do it every year or every 2 years is not, we're quite flexible on that point, but we don't think we should just, make that a thing of the past. We found that dialogue last fall very useful, not only because it looked at the kind of internal issues regarding the UNFCCC and where oceans are being considered and where they're not being considered, but it was also very much a two-way street, where the UNFCCC invited other fora to come in and talk about how they are integrating climate into their ocean work. So for example, ongoing negotiations like BBNJ, or conferences like the UN Ocean Conference, or international organizations like the International Maritime Organization. So, we're not just saying we're going to take on the ocean issues, but we're basically putting a little bit of a burden on the ocean fora to come and tell us how they are taking into account climate issues. So we would also like that decision to sort of encourage in a light way, I suppose, national action by parties to consider levers such as offshore renewable energy, marine-based, nature-based solutions, in their various climate plans, whether those are adaptation communications, NDCs, or long-term strategies. So in essence, we're hoping that this kind of decision sends a message that we have agreed to make every COP in some sense, explicitly or implicitly, a blue COP going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And it's really great to see the U.S. commitment, and thank you for sharing that with us. And another ocean friend has really been for a long time Helen Agren, the ambassador for ocean from the Foreign Ministry of Sweden. So I'm delighted that you are also here and share some brief thoughts as well.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Is the sound okay? Okay, great. It's very nice to be here among these dedicated, devoted colleagues from different parts of the world, fighting for halting climate change and saving the ocean. There is no doubt about the importance of the ocean when we are talking about climate change. Both when it comes to ocean as a victim to greenhouse gas emissions and warming. And not only the ocean is a victim, but also the communities and countries and people that depend on resources from the ocean. But the ocean, as we have heard, is also a part of the solution. It's the increasing for a blue economy is growing, but it has to be based on a equitable use of resources. It could not only be growth for the already wealthy. We need to consider how this blue economy can grow in an equitable way. So research and data has strengthened the message of urgency also. Inter alia, the IPCC report, special report on ocean and cryosphere, and the recent AR6 report, including reports on biodiversity and the loss of biodiversity that we see and that we face in the future. So we need to work more integrated with ocean, climate, biodiversity nexus in work under the convention and in national implementation. And as the US, as Sue said, the dialogue in 2020 on ocean climate under the SBSTA was very useful and rich, and following up on those results needs to lead to political impetus for further action. And we also see merit in bringing together UNFCCC and the other bodies, also stated by Sue, that we need to address oceans under the Framework Convention of Climate Change, but also climate change when we talk about saving biodiversity and a new treaty on the high seas. So the EU is working hard both on reducing emissions to stay below 1.5 degree warming, but also strengthening the blue economy in a sustainable way and developing ocean governance. Also improving data and observation, promoting research and innovation, and building back better post-COVID through the Green New Deal. And we also see, I think, interesting work on sustainable investments. And in the EU, we are now we are working with implementation or developing the taxonomy directive, where we are classifying what investments are sustainable and what are not. And this will be interesting also to see. We are right now working with the maritime sector and classification in that sphere. So we too, the EU wants to see inclusion of the ocean in the 1CP26 decision, and we are interested to listening to other parties and look forward to the UK presidency text proposals in the coming week. And from Sweden, we also have, I want to say that we have signed the Because the Ocean Declaration, and we encourage other countries to do so also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Last but not least, we have another supporter of the oceans for a long time now, which is Chile. So I'm really delighted to introduce to you Ambassador Waldemerkutz, who is the Director for Environment and Ocean at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And give us a brief remark. We're a little bit running out of time, so just reminding everyone to keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you for the organizers for inviting me. It won't take me long.
Thank you.
However, let me say a few things. First of all, we believe that ocean protection is one of the keys to solve the climate problem. We believe also that there's a clear interconnection between climate change and other ongoing UN processes, such as BBNJ, the High Seas Agreement, the establishment of MPAs in the high seas, the 30 by 30 protection of the global ocean, and also I would like to include two issues: the elimination of harmful subsidies in fisheries that create overcapacity and overfishing, and also, I think this is very relevant, we should highlight Principle 1 of the Rio Declaration on Development and Environment that puts in the core of everything that we are doing here the human being, because we have to think about coastal communities, about artisanal fisheries, about local tourism, and we believe that this is very important. They are in the center of our worries. Now, Chile walks the talk as well. We have the 10th largest EEZ, and we have around 43% of this vast EEZ under some form of protection. We're also a very large ocean economy, and we keep a balance between the economy and conservation. Now, we are part of the Ocean Panel that used to be called the High-Level Panel on a Sustainable Ocean Economy, and we abide by the objectives of the Ocean Panel, which is to create sustainable ocean plans for 100% of our EEZ. We have institutions to do that. We have a Council of Ministers on the Ocean, a vast ocean program. We also launched the Because the Ocean Declaration. Thank you, Ambassador Ogren, for highlighting this together with Monaco. It was first launched in 2015 to include ocean into the heart of the UNFCCC deliberations. We have made a long way since then. There are other groups as the Friends of the Ocean today. When I think back in 2015, we were very lonely voices speaking in favor of the oceans. Today, we are thinking not only on putting forward ocean-based solutions to the climate problem, but also in having a relevant and robust outcome, as Special Presidential Envoy of the United States, Secretary Kerry, said yesterday. We need a strong COP, a result that includes the oceans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And my colleague and I just switched so we can jump into our panel for a little bit of grounding for some of the ocean climate action that we've heard from our friends of the ocean and climate representatives. And so I'm pleased to be able to share the lineup of our panelists here today to hear a little bit more about blue carbon activities, ocean and climate activities, and community-based conservation, as well as how partnerships like the the International Partnership for Blue Carbon is contributing to really enabling that action. And so without any further ado, I'd like to turn to our first panelist here today, Marcia Diaz-Marquez, who's an advisor to the Ministry of the Sea Office for Portugal. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the invitation to be here within this great, amazing group of panelists and also the organization. And I would like to thank the Ministry of the Sea of Portugal, Mr. Ricardo Stefan Santos, that is here seated, the opportunity to work with him that allows me to have the experiences that I will share with you today. I will talk about how we could mobilize the climate action to increase the ocean climate action, to increase the climate ambition. And specifically, I would like to share with you what Portugal foresees to mainstream nature-based solutions to climate adaptation into coastal economic sectors. And you know that nature-based solutions are actions that are inspired by or supported by or are copied from nature that aim to protect, to restore, or to manage in a sustainable way the natural ecosystems. And this idea has been endorsed by a lot of reports, the IPBES report, the IPCC report, the Global Adaptation Commission report, and in many other forums. So nature-based solutions includes to work with nature and to understand how the nature works. And to attain these good results, we have to ensure the good ecosystems functioning to climate change and to promote their resilience to changes. If we modify the habitats due to climate change or pollution or through their use, or if we drive a species to a bad condition or close to its extinction, or if we disturb the ecosystem's dynamics, we'll be lowering the resilience of the ecosystems and their ability to adapt. So nature-based solutions including protecting the plants and the animal species, the habitats and the ecosystems and their ecological services. Oceans, as you know, are the largest active carbon sink on Earth, and with management of marine ecosystems offering great climate mitigation and adaptation opportunities. Therefore, maintaining the health of our oceans and coastal ecosystems, it is not only important for our livelihoods and global food security, but it's also a cost-effective strategy. Having that as a corollary, the United Nations declared this decade as the decade for ecosystems restoration, in parallel with the decade for ocean sciences for sustainable development. And the restoration is the process of reversing the degradation of ecosystems to regain their ecological functionality. So, restore and rehabilitate degraded ecosystems and to promote the recovery of threatened species, inter alia through the development and implementation of plans and other management strategies, it is absolutely necessary. Remember, nature-based solutions are locally appropriate actions that are supported by or are copied from or are inspired by nature and that aim to protect, to restore, as I said, and to manage in a sustainable way the natural ecosystems. And these actions should be included or foreseen in national strategies and plans and should be financed. And that was said already here today in this panel. I'll give you some examples of what the Portuguese government has been doing to mainstream nature-based solutions within the governance framework. First, Portugal was one of the first European countries that has approved its Maritime Special Plan that aims, among other objectives, to preserve, to protect, and to manage the natural values of marine ecosystems in order to maintain the good environmental status of marine environment, and also to prevent and minimize the risks arising from natural disasters, climate change, and other human actions. So, maritime special planning is not a nature-based solution itself, but it really contributes to a better organization of nature uses and activities without jeopardizing the ecosystem sustainability. Secondly, Portugal is committed to classify 30% of their maritime space as marine protected area. The whole MPA system will be managed through a well-connected and ecologically representative network. The Portuguese government already finalized the legal act that sets the legal regime to classify MPAs offshore and also the general lines for the MPA national network implementation. In parallel, Portugal is deeply involved with the OSPAR, which is a regional sea convention, on the designation of MPAs in the ICES. And of course, I know that this has some limitations since the OSPAR is a convention that is mandatory for its contracting parties. But even though I recall that Portugal was one of the pioneer countries in designating MPAs in the ICES. Thirdly, Portugal is a leading country in developing national ocean-related strategies, and during this year, it has been done the second revision of our national ocean strategy. This new strategy has a very holistic approach and sets strategic objectives and measures to respond to the sustainable development goals with the final objective of a healthy and a prosperous ocean. Specifically related with nature-based solutions, this strategy also supports the implementation of the MPA network, but also some measures to promote sustainable fishing practices and to bet on science to fill the gaps, the knowledge gaps on habitats functioning and species life cycle in order to develop in the future models to better predict how we could how nature reacts to climate change, allowing us to develop methodologies to improve the adaptation. Lastly, Portugal is also financing through a dedicated operational program called Mar 2020, in English Ocean 2020, trials and scientific projects that will have a direct and indirect impact on marine economic sectors' incomes, not only in small-scale fisheries, but also in many other sectors like nautical, tourism, aquaculture, or fish transformation. And just to give you some examples of which kind of projects that were or are being financed by this operational program, which core objectives are to protect, to restore, or to manage the ecosystems. And they are, for example, the installation of offshore facilities for open sea fish farming trials, or scientific projects to fill gaps in knowledge about species distribution or fish biodiversity patterns. For example, the assessment and restoration of marsh communities affected by invasive plant species, or sand dune valorization and rehabilitation projects, and research about the ecological importance and the estimation of the economic value provided by seagrass meadows, and we have many others. So nature-based solutions have a huge potential to address both causes and consequences of climate change while supporting biodiversity and thereby securing the flow of ecosystem services on which human well-being depends on. Although are far to be the only solution, the nature-based solutions are a fundamental part of any action for climate and biodiversity and are an essential component of the overall global effort to achieve the goals of Paris Agreement on climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for Portugal's leadership on marine protection and its relationship to nature-based solutions for climate change and for improved livelihoods. Our next panelist is Luan Losi Yawingu, who's the acting manager for the adaptation branch of the Climate Change and Development Authority of Papua New Guinea. Luan, over to you.
Thank you. Good day to all. I would like to thank the International Partnership for Blue Carbon for the invitation to be part of this panel discussion. And I'm honored to share some examples of blue carbon activities in Papua New Guinea. So I work with the Climate Change and Development Authority in Papua New Guinea, And our role is basically to coordinate climate change efforts, including both adaptation and mitigation in the country. In addressing adaptation in Papua New Guinea, the government has identified 9 priority areas of which our efforts are focused on. So blue carbon activities are addressed through the priority areas of coastal flooding and sea level rise and damage to coral reefs, and also through the implementation of REDD+ initiatives. Blue carbon activities are also pursued under the community conservation efforts. In PNG, government departments are working with international and national organizations, including the communities, to implement blue carbon activities, mainly focused on management of mangrove resources. I will share a project where an NGO collaboratively works with communities and the government to implement its activities. Excuse me. The Mangrove Market Mary or Mangrove Market Women project implemented by the Nature Conservancy is an initiative that links local efforts, ecotourism, and blue carbon to create long-term solutions for mangroves and the women of Papua New Guinea. The women are developing a project to effectively and sustainably manage their mangroves and near-shore fisheries, overfishing and overharvesting. They are also discussing innovative approaches such as placing an economic value on mangroves for storing blue carbon. By sustainably managing their mangroves and near-shore fisheries, the Mangrove Market Women project addresses 2 urgent problems: overfishing and overharvesting. Using innovative approaches, the women are building local markets for sustainably harvested mangrove products like mud crabs and clams, and they are also exploring voluntourism initiatives and have successfully partnered with tour operators. In the Pacific, women are mostly overlooked population in the community. They are usually the main users of mangroves, and this project, the Mangrove Market Women project, aims to link women to sustainable income for mangrove products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's inspiring to hear about the work that is happening on the ground in Papua New Guinea, so we really appreciate you being here with us today. Our next panelist is Anne Singyo, who's the co-founder and executive director of the Ibil Society, a Palau NGO. And so we're excited to have her join us today, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning, everybody. My name is Anne Singyo. As I was introduced, I am also a RARE Fellow, and I've been working with partners in Palau and across international communities to provide environmental studies that integrate science and indigenous knowledge of natural habitats to youth and children, both local and international. Additionally, we work with small communities, resource users, and managers to restore marine and terrestrial habitat and ecosystems, such as removal of marine debris, tree planting to restore native forests, and outplanting of sea cucumber to restore seagrass habitat. Climate impact on fishery, as reported by the latest Palau PERCA 2020, projects a 20% decline in coral reef fish and an over 50% decline in open ocean fishery for most of the islands in the Pacific, including Palau. From a recent study conducted from Ibil Society and partners, I will demonstrate the level of reliance by the local communities on marine resources and fishery. From this study, it's clear that 70% of Palau's men and women rely on fishing and gleaning for livelihood. Men represent 67% of fishers that depend on fin fish, and women represent 85% of the gleaners of invertebrates and sea cucumber. Women dominate the informal market by 73% and rely on the sales of their sea cucumber as a primary source of income. Altogether, 85% of these fishers rely on the nearby shallow fishing grounds without access to motorboats. And these are concentrated in areas of mangrove, seagrass, and the nearby coral reefs. Just a little bit of an overview on the current sea cucumber population, which is the targeted species for this project. Based on the study, 60% of the fishers say that their fishery is in decline. Based on science data of ecological studies of sea cucumber populations in Palau, it shows a decline of 89% of sea cucumber population. The global trade of high-valued seafood has devastating effects on and serial depletion of fisheries in coastal communities such as Palau. The sea cucumber trade optimizes this struggle that has long-lasting effects on the small communities and indigenous people who have relied on these resources for thousands of years before. Palau sea cucumber fishery is a fishery that belongs to women, but with the tendencies of development programs that targets men as dominant figures in fisheries, women fisheries are neglected and do not receive the attention that they need for sustainable management. And at this level of biomass, the natural occurrence of spawning of sea cucumber is difficult, as the species spawn by broadcasting into the ocean, depending on the current, for the male and female species to fertilize their eggs in water. And as such, the natural spawning and aggregation and spawning of sea cucumber in the natural habitat is difficult. Thus, a hatchery spawning and restoration of wild stocks was recommended, a solution by both fishers themselves based on traditional practices and science. And so with this knowledge, we started working with women fishers and technicians of hatcheries to develop an effective spawning and restoration projects of sea cucumber wild stock in the seagrass habitat. And in this case, we targeted sandfish as a target species for the project, which is also the most, the least, is most overfished species of sea cucumber. 13 months later into the project, we have increased our monthly production and reseeding activities from 2,500 species of sandfish to 23,000 individual species on a monthly basis. And we've increased the biomass of the species in the treated areas from 0.003% to 0.03%. And that translates to the baseline data of showing 3 species of sandfish in that 4,000 square meter area to 500 species, individual species, demonstrating wild aggregation and potential for natural spawning of the species in the wild. The result of this project is showing very promising signs of ecosystem restoration that we will continue to take throughout Palau. And we will continue to integrate the best practices and findings out of the study into our environmental studies program and contribute to the informing of resource management and decision making in similar coastal communities in the Pacific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne. I love hearing about women's role in conservation and how targeting some of those economic species really contributes to protecting and restoring blue carbon ecosystems like seagrasses. To come full circle, we have one last panelist, Kirsten Anisi from IOC, who we heard from earlier, will share a little bit about the upcoming opportunities from the IPBC for blue carbon. Kristen, over to you.
Thank you very much, and I will be brief.
Now you can.
I will be brief, as we all have to run, I guess, to next meetings. But yeah, what the IPBC is doing is really, with the BCAF, with this Blue Carbon Accelerator Fund, I think there's a great opportunity to prepare communities to get the projects to a level where it's then also really ready for support, and we are looking forward to work there together. And I think also with the partners involved in the IPBC, such as the Blue Carbon Initiative, and the IOC is also very much involved in both of those, really getting the science to the policymakers, to the implementers, so that we then really have blue carbon projects which are based on the best science available and also in a sustainable manner. And I hope that the upcoming Scottish Blue Carbon Forum, which will take place next week, will also push the scientific community really to go in the direction for the next decade, really for the ocean science, for sustainable development of blue carbon ecosystems, and that we can develop that together for then also the practitioners involved in the IPBC. And I think this, blue carbon ecosystems are really in the heart of the ocean and climate nexus. And I hope that we can help now and in the future those who want to and who can implement blue carbon projects.
Thank you. And on behalf of RARE, I'd like to also thank all of our guests here on the panel, and for our Friends of Ocean and Climate speakers, and our co-hosts with the IPBC and the Fijian government, as well as our partners in collaboration for this event today, like the Ocean Conservancy. We are short on time, so unfortunately we'll have to not take questions from the audience today, but I think that we should have time for one question to everyone. And so I'd like to ask all of our panelists, and we'll go down the row, what is one word that inspires ocean climate action? And I'll kick this off, and I'll say my word is ambition. Mariana?
Partnerships.
She said livelihoods. Human component. Inspiration.
Yes.
Tilda and Joel, those are my kids.
Oh.
Communities.
Communities, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone here for joining us today, and for our wonderful set of speakers and our panelists. We are very much looking forward to really seeing the strengthening of ocean climate action here at the COP and our local action on the ground across the globe. So once again, thank you, and we look forward to continuing our increased climate ambition using ocean climate action.